Hey, this week on the Derek's Live, we're talking about how wisdom unlocks the world. Let's go. What's going on, guys? Uh-oh. That's the freeze in the mosh pit right before everybody gets destroyed. That's what happens. It's like the pause, violence. That's the order. Pause, violence. You need the pause before the violence. I'm just kidding. Not advocating violence. Just a little bit. In the mosh pit. Keep it where it's supposed to be. Well, welcome to the Derek's Live, guys. My name is Sean. I'm going to be your host tonight, and I'm here with my beautiful wife, Emily. How's it going?
It's going.
It's going. It's been one of them nights,
Yeah.
man. It's just been fun, and sometimes in the suck, you just have to kind of laugh a little and make little Wayne jokes and sexy faces at each other until you just want to throw up in your mouth. So we've been interrupted by the toddler twice. We have been interrupted by the dog once. And you'd think that we were talking about getting cock blocked, but we're just trying to record a podcast tonight. So it's been fun. The day has been all over the place.
Yeah, it's late.
It's late, and we're out here getting it done for you.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for everybody that's been listening and joining us on the lives during the week and commenting. Keep those subscribes coming, share, listen, do your thing. We're really grateful that you guys are taking this journey with us.
Yes.
And starting your own processes, because you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. And so tonight, guys, we're talking about how wisdom has really changed our life. It unlocks the world, right? And there's a lot to wisdom. We want to unpack it. There's a lot of layers to it, right?
Yeah. So if you haven't been following along, this is number 3 in the Derek non-negotiables.
Non-negotiables.
And it's our family non-negotiables. And it's how we interact with each other, but also with our children daily, hourly, by the minute. So,
and sometimes we got to remind each other,
yes.
hey, that's not fucking negotiable.
Yeah.
We got to refer to the chart.
It's on the wall. Go look
So-
at the wall. But if you haven't followed along, go back and listen to the last 2 episodes. Yeah. We kind of dig deep into the first non-negotiable, which is own it, right? Own your shit. Yeah. And then,
well, episode 3 is kind of like the dare.
Yeah.
We dare you to take this jump with us. And then we go right into these non-negotiables that are really shaping our lives and our children's lives.
Yeah. And how much we've seen a difference already. And not a lot of time. We're talking a year?
Yeah, a year.
Almost a year.
Yeah, almost a year. So
not even quite, but almost a year.
So guys, look, you almost get this imposter syndrome sometime where you feel like you're out of your fucking league here. Yep. But it's working.
Yeah.
And you're almost it's this thing where you're selfish. You feel selfish holding on to it because it's so impactful in your life that it really just blows the fucking ceiling off of where you're at and just propels you into this area of unknown change, right? It's transformation. And so, wisdom, Em, why don't you kind of unpack, what wisdom means to us and where we're starting here?
Yeah. So, we kind of, as part of our prayer and as our non-negotiables that we recite with our children at the end of each night, we pray over them wisdom and knowledge. And I think a lot of times that wisdom and knowledge kind of get lumped together.
They do.
And some people use them interchangeable, but they're not.
Well, there's a big difference.
Right. So knowledge is often like the information, and it's all of the information. But wisdom is the application of that knowledge, right? So it's using the information that you receive, whether that's through an education, through life experiences, just from everyday, like walking it out, right? Wisdom is applying that to all of the situations and making an impact.
Putting it to work,
right?
Right? Applying it and making it like push you forward.
Right. So it's gaining knowledge so that we can use wisdom. And so we've kind of broken it down into like a couple of different things on how we've kind of gained wisdom and what that process has looked like for us. And like for us, what was that shift? What do you think that shift was that kind of started us on this journey?
Well, I think that really like reading has been the catalyst for this thing for us, you know? And so I know I've never been a big reader ever. And you're quite the opposite of that.
Yeah. We're polar opposites.
Polar opposites.
Well, I think we used to be. So like when we first met and like up until recently, I read for fun.
Yeah.
Like just all of the books. I love literature in general. I've always been a big reader as a kid.
Even the dirty stuff.
Even the dirty stuff.
Made her blush. Yes. But no, really like reading has just been this thing that I've never, I read a couple books when I was a kid and really enjoyed it, but it was kind of like that, I'm not going to be like this nerdy kid that just sits inside and reads all the time. So we're going to put that away. And I just never really explored it past like probably elementary or middle school. And then I got in a bunch of trouble as a kid and went off to like an alternative high school where reading was not like, it just wasn't, reading for pleasure wasn't something that was important, right? It was like, what are the bare minimums to get you a high school diploma? Let's focus on that. And so I didn't have any of those like Shakespeare experiences or, whatever the fuck you all read in high school. I couldn't even tell you the books that most high schoolers read because it was never even like a point of
it wasn't
discussion,
part of the curriculum.
Right?
Yeah.
And so in my adult life, I never really read. Until there was like this shift that happened. And what really started it was this book by Gary Vaynerchuk. I was sitting on Facebook one day and this was back before like TikTok and everything were a thing. And I think it may have even been YouTube. And, I came across Gary V and, I was like, hey, who the hell is this guy? Because like he's dropping F-bombs all over the place. He's just very raw and real with people. And he's just my kind of person. Mm-hmm. And so he started talking about his book, Crush It. And so I was like, well, I'm going to go read that because I connected really well with him. And his writing style just like, was like, oh shit, this is enjoyable. I really like this. And that kind of, the content caused me to grow and get hungrier for what was next. So
I don't remember, did you read that book or did you listen to it?
No, because of like my line of work and I'm in the car a lot, Audible has been a lifesaver for me. I don't have a lot of time at home sometimes. And when I am home, I like to do things that are either for the family or selfish. And for me, those things aren't reading. And so I haven't found time in that. So Audible has allowed me to really, in those times that I'm just wasting in the car, to improve myself and dig deeper into more knowledge and more wisdom.
Yeah.
So,
and that's, I think that, there's a confusion there. So sometimes I've gotten this a couple of times, like, well, I've listened to 60 books this year. Well, that's not the same as reading.
Oh, bullshit.
I call bullshit. How many books did you read?
Yeah. How many books did you read? And how much of that did you absorb? And here's the thing, right? If you know anything about like learning psychology, different people learn different ways. Yep. And so some people need to hear things auditorily. Some people need to see things and they're visual learners. Some people only read by doing or only learn by doing.
Yeah.
And so like fuck you if you don't think listening to a book is reading a book.
Yeah.
It's potato. I still heard and absorbed the same shit you did. Right now, I do believe that there's something to being able to take notes or highlight sometimes. And so like if I'm digging really deep into a book, like if there's something that has just really pulled me in, I'll buy a hard copy of that book so that I can notate it and highlight it as I'm listening to it. But that's a pretty rare occasion. Even Audible has got a way to tag notes and bookmark and do stuff like that now. So there's really not an excuse anymore not to read. Because it's even like one of my favorite things to do in my job, sometimes there's downtime throughout the day. And sometimes you choose to be productive with that downtime and continue to work. And sometimes you're selfish with it. But I really enjoy like antiquing. And so I'll dip into like old antique stores, but I've always got my earbuds in while I'm just walking around a store and I'm listening to a book or a podcast or something to grow in that moment.
Right. And so for us, that seeking wisdom, finding wisdom is we're taking the everyday moments that would be wasted otherwise and using that to really further ourselves. So and I don't get as much downtime as you do just because I homeschool and I have the kids with me most of the time, but we're in the car at least 30 minutes of travel time both ways to anywhere we go. And so there's almost always some book or music that we listen to that's like on purpose encouraging music.
Oh yeah. And so and this is something that I've struggled with because I have a deep love for music.
Right.
And so the one time that I'm doing something and I'm not listening to stuff to build me up is probably when I'm in the gym because I like to listen to like loud, angry or like just like hip hop or something like that to motivate me in the gym. But even then I've found, not all the time, but sometimes I've been able to find some playlist with some motivational type stuff that's been put to heavy music or Andy Andrews, who we really like, has a segment on his 7 Decisions that he's put to audio and
to music,
like a poetry style almost. And then there's all kinds of guys out there that are doing, just heavy hip hop or, tracks over motivational speeches and stuff like that. And so those things aren't necessarily adding a ton of like knowledge or wisdom to your life, but what they do is they reaffirm the things that you're already pushing for. And so
we've already read the information from Andy Andrews. We've already started applying that. We're reading other books, but that music in the background when we're working in the yard or when we're at the gym or when I go walking in the morning, like it's just re-emphasizing that information. It's really putting it in deep so that it's just there all the time. So,
for sure. I mean, because if you're really trying to grasp something, hearing it once is not going to be enough.
It's not enough,
right?
No.
Like, I don't know the exact psychology behind that. I think it's like 9 times or something like that you've got to like really absorb something and hear it for it to really like catch. And I might be wrong there, but it's a lot.
I was just doing a statistical study on the difference between learning in like a classroom setting and learning through play. And one of the statistics actually said that you have to see something 100 times to grasp it in a classroom setting and like in a like student setting. Yeah. But when you're playing, you only have to see it 3 times.
Wow.
So when you're doing and I kind of applied that to the music aspect because that for me, that is that play, like it's enjoyable. It's not a classroom setting because it really is. It does trigger the brain in a different place than like auditory, just listening to a book. Music triggers the brain somewhere different. And so we're hitting different points on the brain, which really does emphasize learning it in a really foundational way. So, but whatever style that you learn, reading is a great way to grasp wisdom. And so if that's listening to audiobooks, if that's reading books, if it's doing both at the same time, if it's watching, a lot of these guys have YouTube and they actually speak on the same subjects. And so you can actually watch a live version on YouTube.
Yeah, and so and that's one of the things that I've really utilized to figure out what books I want to read.
Yes.
Is that, you know, you get on TikTok and you find someone that is really just you connect with well, and then you go and find their other content and figure out, well, hey, does this person have some material? And I'm a big believer that if someone's adding value to your life for free online, that you should support their business.
Absolutely.
So like if I catch a hold of somebody that I really enjoy listening, I'm trying to go to find their content or their book or you know, whatever service they're offering to see if it adds more value to my life.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't always add value, so sometimes the answer is I'm probably not going to do business with that person.
But it's worth looking.
But it's worth looking, and you've already connected with them and their video content, their online content. So chances are their book is probably going to add a lot of value. Yeah. It's been really cool. One of our sons is just moved back in. He's back home with us, and we're really pushing him in these 7 decisions and helping him grasp them. And one of the guys that we got to hear at a mastermind event we were at over the summer, Eric Thomas, E.T., just dropped his new book. And so I grabbed it, and we were in the car on the way home from picking him up, and we listened to it or part of it. And, you know, we get back in the car together. He's like, hey, let's finish the book. And so he's connecting with it too. And it's adding value to his life. Right. So, which is what it's all about. Right. And it's like the songs. How many times do we get in the car and the kids say, hey, play happy or play,
our 2-year-old,
you know,
I mean, almost every day. And it's funny because it's how she's learning to grasp her emotions. So when she's struggling with something, she will request, like if she's unhappy, she will ask to play happy and she wants it on the radio or she wants it on the Alexa, like play happy. And for her, it helps her calm down. And it's like, it's remarkable to see a 2-year-old put 2 and 2 together. Like this music, these words make me feel better when I'm mad. Yeah. So put that on when I'm mad, and she'll ask for it. Like, it's crazy.
I think the most rewarding thing about this whole thing is seeing your children put it into action.
Yes.
Right. Like, I can't even tell you, like, just hearing Emily say that, like, just kind of makes me kind of teary eyed. Like, it's so cool when you see a fucking toddler that's grasping these things. And we were talking about this earlier. Like, think about how much sooner our kids are going to be ready to get to that elite or just next level in their life.
And like some of the struggles that they're not going to have to face.
The things that they won't have to have, like the fights and the like just determination that they're going to have, and the conversations we won't have to have with them because they know that they have to own it and that it's the process. So
and it's not to say that they're not going to struggle and they're not going to have adversity, but they're going to have the tools already in them to face it head on and not back away from it. And we're already seeing the fruit of that labor, and we're only a year in, and all of them are grasping it so forcefully that, like, it's funny, and we've talked about this on every other podcast, but they're encouraging each other. And like,
it's really cool.
Like, no, you have to keep going. You can't quit. No, you have to be like, choose to be happy.
Choose to be happy.
And like, just seeing them encourage each other outside of even like, they don't know that we're watching. Like, they have that's just not even in their realm of like understanding, but we're off in another room and we can hear one of them, nope, choose to be happy. Yeah. It's like, oh gosh.
Well, and even like pulling back into reading, it's our reading has really created a hunger in them to read too, because you've really started reading to them and being purposeful. Because if you don't know, if this is the first time listening, Emily homeschools our children, and so she's started also reading nonfiction books to them from our
and fiction books too, but
that's what I meant, fiction books.
Reading,
not a reader.
Yeah, but we're reading nonfiction too. I've actually found several really, really well done nonfiction books about like George Washington and Amelia Earhart.
These biographies for kids,
and like, what a great way to introduce them to people that have changed the world is through literature and through stories, because they relate to stories. And so one of our values that we're instilling in them is reading out loud as a family. And so like, we are regularly sitting down multiple times a day reading out loud. So I let them play with Play-Doh and they sit at the table and I read a story to them, or they play with blocks. Or last night, instead of watching a movie, we all sat down on the couch and we read Charlotte's Web. And
it was a rather traumatizing experience, right? Like, but let's talk about that, because it allows your kids to explore emotions and have to deal with emotions in a fantasy realm rather than like having to be in a real world environment experiencing this thing for the first time.
Yeah. And so if you've never read Charlotte's Web, it's the very first scene is the little girl Fern watching her dad walk out to the barn with an axe, and she's trying to piece together, why does dad need an axe? And mom's like, well, there was pigs born last night and one isn't strong enough to make it in the litter, and Fern loses it. And that it was so descriptive that our 5-year-old and 7-year-old were like sitting there having a conversation like, well, why is he going to have an axe? What are they going to do to the pig?
Because we have farm animals, and it's an emotional topic for them.
And we name the farm animals, and we have to stop naming the farm animals.
Get that through a 5-year-old's head.
So, but it allowed them to kind of grasp, like, what would you do in this situation? How would you act? How would you feel? And it allowed this conversation to just kind of happen naturally about, like, why do we have farm animals? Is there a circumstance where we wouldn't, slaughter a farm animal? And what are the circumstances that we would? And explaining where our food comes. And it's this whole conversation that kind of pours in, but then also like this imaginary world that they get to see through their own eyes, and like listening to, because they don't ever describe what Fern looks like, the little girl in the book, but asking them, what do you think she looks like? And our 7-year-old's like, I think she's got red hair, and I think that she's got green eyes.
Just allowing their imagination to develop and to be used, and so I think it was really cool. Emily did this exercise. You guys were reading James and the Giant Peach, and you did this exercise with the kids where you had them draw what you were reading. Yeah. And so you were reading this about the character.
Yeah, ants, the evil ants, Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker. And it talks about how round Aunt Sponge is, and she had how did she describe it? Pursed lips. And so it described like she had sucked in lips, and it looked like she had no lips at all. And then Aunt Spiker is this tall, gangly, and it used that word. And so we had to figure out from the context what she thought gangly meant. And so we kind of read through it. And I said, so what do you think that meant? She's like, I think it means she's really tall and skinny. I'm like, I think that's exactly what it means.
So and she actually drew the girl, and it looked just like the illustration in the book, and she hadn't seen the illustration, and we covered it up.
It was funny because I don't think you watched the movie with us. So when we were done, we actually went back and watched the animated movie, and she asked, well, that ant doesn't have pursed lips. She doesn't, because
but so a couple things happen there, right? So it allows them to connect comprehension with imagination. And so in real time, they're comprehending what's going on in the book, and they're putting that into their imagination and then translating that to paper, right? And then they're having recollection of all of those things later on. Yeah. And so it's all of this all of this brain development that leads down this road that really propels them to be the best version of themselves they can be.
And they get excited about learning. Yeah. And like they don't even realize that they're learning, but their vocabulary has, just immensely exploded. And all of them, not just our 5 and 7-year-old, like our 2-year-old speaks way better than a lot of other toddlers because she's around
You forget she's 2.
You do.
Legit. And our 5-year-old, everywhere we take her, people are like, who the hell are you?
Yeah,
like
she talks like an old woman.
She talks like a 70-year-old woman that's like eloquent and
very much an old soul,
tactful, and she's weird. I love that little girl to death, but she is weird.
So, she definitely is. She's an eye opener when you have a conversation with her.
So, and Isabel, you're weird in a good way if you hear this, baby. Later on, Daddy loves you.
So, but going past that, it allows children to associate what heroism looks like, right? To be heroic. And how would they associate that heroism in their own life, and put it into action? Because when you read a story, you want to be the main character. You want to be the hero, right? You don't want to be the person that doesn't have a name, that's just Joe on the side of the road in a gray coat. You want to be the superhero. You want to be the one that changes the story.
Well, and I think that as they get to see these stories unfold, and some of the decision making that goes on in the stories and the plot twist. They're able to gain wisdom from that and the application of how things happen. And so it really, even reading nonfiction forces them to kind of glean from the content that they're reading and understand some of those things that are going on.
Right.
But it also gives access to experience and knowledge that we would never have access to before, even for adults.
Yes.
And we kind of skipped over that one a little bit in our line, but I think it's important to go back to, because like there's people on our bookshelves that we'd never get to sit in a room with. Right. Now some of those people are on our Dream 25 list to do business with, but so we're going to sit with some of these people.
But some of them are no longer living,
yeah, some
right?
Of them no longer living.
We've got books from Abraham Lincoln and George Washington on our bookshelves.
One of my favorite things to do in these antique stores when I'm antiquing is to buy, antique books for Emily, because I know she really loves like history and reading, and so do I. But so we've got a lot of like pretty cool first edition like presidential speeches and like just stuff that we feel is going to be important for history.
And journals, like to see what some of our presidents were thinking when they were going through this, like Abraham Lincoln when he was writing. His speeches, like we have part of his journal, and to see the behind the scenes on like what he was processing when he was writing his speeches is really powerful. And I think that adds value because we get to see the wisdom part of it.
Yeah. So we were just joined by a 2-year-old that is up way past her bedtime, but we're going to push through in her presence. So she's on the floor cuddling with the dog right now. And we'll see how that goes. So maybe he'll put her to bed. Put her to bed, Sully. He's just laying there. All right. So moving on from reading Emily, what's the second layer that is like probably one of the most important things in your life?
Yeah, I think it's who's in your squad, right? The military mentality that who are the people that are impacting your life that you're seeking wisdom from, and then you're adding wisdom to. And so we were talking at like, what was the best way to describe that? And it's really like the people that you want to go to war with, right? It's they've got to be strong. They've got to be smart, and they have to have wisdom, because you don't want to walk into a situation and not be prepared for what you're fixing to come across, right?
Well, it almost sounds kind of selfish when you say it out loud, right? But the reality is, and you hear this a lot in this fear that we're entering, is that you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yep.
And you think about that, and you think about the 5 people in your life that you're surrounded by the most and that you spend the most of your time with, and think about where you fall into that equation, and so it's important to surround yourself with people that are on the same level as you, that are as hungry as you to get to where you want to be. And it might not be exactly the same perspective, but you see like the memes and the Facebook stuff that like I want like friends that are talking about investing and buying houses and building legacy, and not friends that are talking about other friends, right? And that's kind of this mentality. Be around people that are going to add value to your life so that you can add value to theirs too.
Right. And you don't want a pity party.
No.
Like, as much as in the moment, sometimes you feel like you want a pity party. That is not what you need. You need somebody that's going to grab you by the bootstraps.
Get the fuck up.
And like, no, we've got to keep moving forward. Like, feel sorry for yourself for half a second, but that's all you get. And we got to move forward. And recognizing that when people speak wisdom, it often, like, that critique feels harsh, right? Sometimes we don't like to see the truth. We don't like to hear the truth.
Yeah.
We don't like to feel that we're not the very best. And especially I feel like in our culture now that it's really hard to give criticism, right? Because it always comes across as like, well, you're just tearing me down.
Yeah.
But that really is, there's value in that. If you don't take it personally, you just see it for what it is, and see that the people that, if you've chosen wisely, the people that are around you really, even when they speak harshly, they're seeking your best interest.
Well, and it's important to be surrounded by people that you can bounce those ideas off of and ask them to add wisdom and value into the things that you're trying to do. You know, like I have a friend, for instance, that has really been wrestling with his career lately, and he calls me as he's getting opportunities and says, "Hey, what do you think about this? Like, talk me through it." And I do the same for him sometimes. You know, I bounce stuff off of him, and we have allowed each other just to be real with each other, right? And you know, like he's like, "Hey, that's a stupid fucking idea. Don't do that." You know, be okay with someone saying that to you, right? Because if you're surrounding yourself with people that you truly want to add value to your life, sometimes that value hurts.
Yeah.
Sometimes like they have to be coarse with you in a constructive way, right? Because if you love somebody, you're not a dickhead to that person, but it should be expected that you're going to call me on my bullshit, right? Because I need that, right? You know, if you're my friend, you know that I'm going to be real with you, right? Like I don't have, like, I've lost a lot of friends because I've been real with them and they don't appreciate that. They don't find that it adds value, and that's okay. They can go suck somewhere else. I want to be friends with people who want to grow. Yes. Right. And it's not that you want to be an asshole or, you know, you're saying that, you know, you're not going to love those people because you still, it doesn't mean that you push them out of your life and you don't talk to them or anything like that. But it means I don't spend as much time around you. Yeah. Like if you're not willing to put some work into your life to get to a level, like let's do this together. Let's grow together. Let's move together. Let's get better together.
And it's not in the same, like, we are doing this a different way than someone else, but
for sure,
as long as we're moving forward, it doesn't matter the way, like the transportation doesn't matter as long as the destination forward is like together, right? So like if you're going to do this through working on cars or building a multi-million-dollar nail salon, that's okay. We can do it through some other avenue too, but we're all going to keep pushing and encouraging each other forward.
Yeah, I mean, and you've got to allow those people to put some wisdom into your life when you need it, right? And you can glean and learn from other people's experience and insight.
And their mistakes.
Their perception, their mistakes. You know, it's all valuable,
right?
But you have to give those people permission to speak into your life about those things. And if you don't give them the permission and they do anyway, check yourself if it hurts because, you know, they're trying to love you.
Yeah.
You know, some of us, that's the only way we know how to love, is just to hurt your feelings.
Well, I don't think that for you, I don't think your intention is ever to hurt somebody's feeling. Never. I mean, very, very seldom.
But it happens.
It does. And I don't think that's ever like, this is my goal. I want you to leave this conversation feeling hurt. I feel like for the most part, when you enter a conversation, you just give the best advice you know how to give in that situation. And it comes across sometimes as like a little rough around the edges.
And I've had to learn to be a little bit more eloquent or elegant or whatever the fuck that word is. I've had to learn to kind of smooth myself out some, you know, and I've gotten better at that through the years, but I fucked up a lot as well. But I think like my perception has always been like, I don't ever want to miss the opportunity that you are missing already.
Yeah.
Right. Like I want you to know how I feel, and I would rather hurt your feelings than there be a question as to where I stand. Yeah. And sometimes I think that you just have to be real with people. There's not time for the fluff and the bullshit and all the like just non-essential just shit that we put ourselves through, right? Like I don't need you to guard my feelings. I don't need you to fluff things up. Be real with me. Yeah. Add value to my life, and I'll add value to your life, and we can fucking do this together. Yeah. Right. But that's a personal decision that you have to make to be in that place. Yeah. That, hey, I can let my feelings sit over here
while I have this conversation.
You know?
So, and I think that in our culture, we've kind of strayed away from this asking for advice and asking for help, right? It's
Makes
kind
you
of
soft.
right. It makes you feel weak.
You weak, miserable person who needs help.
And a lot of like if your circle doesn't have the people that are trying to build you up,
Right.
it's a really easy target to like tear somebody down. And like social media is really guilty of this. Like you ask a question in a public forum and everyone's like, well, why are you doing that? You're an idiot, blah, blah, blah. And like the very worst of humanity comes out and like spews all over your post when in reality. And so because of that, we've really strayed away. Well, I'm not going to ask. I'll just figure it out or I'll just mess it up, whatever.
So true.
So there is so much value when you form your squad and now you have these people. Then when you go to ask advice, it's not this, we're going to destroy you and tear you down and make you feel like you're the scum of humanity. Instead, it's, okay, what are the steps that you're already taking? And these are the steps that you should take next. And so it's been interesting in this world that's so digital now, right? And the internet has changed it, and COVID changed it a little bit because there's so much more online presence than I feel like there has been like in-person presence. Like it takes so much effort to get people in the same room.
That it does.
And, especially when you live kind of like how we kind of live out in the sticks, kind of, sort of. And there's not a lot of people that are actually physically close to us. So when we get people together, it's an ordeal. Like you have to drive 45 minutes to an hour to get to us or for us to get to you.
But I love it that way.
But what are some things that we've done to kind of combat that? So we've kind of kept our in-person squad on purpose, but we've expanded our squad online, and we've done it a couple of different ways intentionally to add value and not just post it in like a public space, but to create an intentional space.
Well, it's coming in alignment with like-minded people, right? And it's being purposeful to find people that are of the mindset that you are. And look, your mindset might not be our mindset. Figure out who your circle is. Figure out who your squad and what that looks like. But find some fucking people to align with that have the same target that you do for themselves. And so you've got to find that audience. And so what we've done is we've found an online community of entrepreneurs and people who are trying to be the best version of themselves they can be. It's called Apex. If you want to hear about it, shoot me a DM. I'll tell you about it. Yeah. But it's added a ton of value to our life because it's given us access to people that we wouldn't have access to that are a little bit further along or a lot further along in the process than we are. And we get to hear their experience that they've gained and the knowledge that they've gained and add it to our wisdom. Yeah. And it puts more on your pile, right? And
when we ask a question, we know that we're going in with the mindset like we're looking to change this and fix it in the most streamlined way possible. And there's people that have already gone through a lot of the things that we've gone through or something similar enough that when they speak into that, they're coming from a place of experience. It's not just fluff that somebody's read, on a on some, blog somewhere that maybe makes sense or maybe not.
Well, it's people who have the same interest as you do, and so, just make sure that your squad is going the same direction you are. Yeah. Right. I don't have time for negative people anymore. I don't have time for people who are always looking for a way out and a way not to do. And so we're choosing to kind of pull those people out of our life. Yeah. Right. And to we're not choosing to not love them anymore, but we're choosing not to do a lot of one-to-one and FaceTime with those people because they're not our people. There's just not the same mindset that we have anymore.
Well, and the natural result of us spending more time with the right people is there's less time to spend with the not right people.
And so, and this is a hard one, right? Like there's been some real discussion that we've had to have about this and who we're going to be intentional about spending time with and trying to develop that in our life. Yeah. So it's a thing that, like, if you're married, you need to have some intentional conversations with your spouse about, and be on the same page
Yeah.
and explore it. Don't be afraid to ask, like, hey, like, is this the right use of our time
Yep.
with this person? Because you're either moving forward or you're moving backwards.
Mm-hmm.
There's no sitting still, right? Because every day you don't do something, you're getting worse.
So, and some like practical pointers, some of the people that we're looking for in our squad are people that have been successful in business in ways that we want to be. It's people that have been married longer than we've been married. It's people that have raised children that have become successful.
Yeah.
And so it's people that have homeschooled for a long, long time. Those are the people that we're pulling them in to glean from them. And so find what you need and where you're going and the information that would be most valuable. And then find the people that have that information and they don't even have to know that they're on your squad for them to be on your squad, right? You can ask a question or read their book and that automatically becomes part of your wisdom.
And look, this isn't a one-way street, right? Like,
Yes.
you need to add value too. This isn't just like a, hey, let me take what I can take and then move on.
Exactly.
It's actually building a relationship and pulling close together and living life together and actually pouring into one another.
Right.
And like Emily said, like there are going to be circumstances where you choose to align with people that you're not necessarily living everyday life with. Those are good people to align yourself with that are going to add value to your life. But I think this is really like super applicable to the people you're actually living life with.
Yeah.
And so like our heart is to add value to whatever conversation we're part of, right? I don't ever want to just feel like I'm showing up to take. Mm-hmm. And so to make sure that it's not just one-sided, that there's something in it for the people in your squad too. Add whatever you can to their life so that you guys can walk this journey together.
And that's sharing your wins, but it's also sharing your losses. Like when you really fuck something up, it's okay to tell your squad about that because they could learn and not go through those same mistakes. Like if you've learned something the hard way, please share that with those people because
it's knowledge,
it's
and
valuable.
knowledge becomes wisdom, right? And it all goes back to the core here is that you're able, what happens here is you're able to pull the experiences from all these people that are moving with you in the same direction and apply it to your own journey. And so you're able to learn lessons and gain their wisdom because you guys are walking together in alignment. And it's just like, it kind of like makes you like you're like a superhero because you're like combining your journey together and your walk together. And it makes you live in community and live in a way that you're just forced to add value to whatever you're doing.
Right. And it does become second nature over time.
Very much so.
So, and you'll find that you get pulled into other people's squads because you're adding value.
Yeah.
And initially I think that a lot of the friendships and the relationships that we formed started as us serving them as whatever way we could. And I feel like that's probably the next part of this, that before the relationship form, it was us serving them in whatever capacity we could. It was helping, bring a meal or holding a door, something simple. It doesn't have to be real complex.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of our like super close relationships have just grown out of loving people.
Yeah.
And so, just not being selfish in moments of need and just pouring into people and allowing our resources to be their resources. Mm-hmm. And so you'd be really surprised what just being nice to people and just being a good person pays you back. Yeah. And it like I said, some of this stuff sounds selfish, but when you really look at it and at its root, it doesn't work unless you surrender to service first. Yeah. And so you really have to give of yourself on a lot of these things to gain the wisdom and the knowledge that you ultimately want to receive. And you're not going to get anywhere if you just keep going in and taking, right? If you just go places and take, nobody's going to fucking put up with you anymore. Eventually you're going to wear your welcome out. Yeah. And so you need to go in and give yourself away to some of these things that you want to add to your life, because the natural you'll see in marketing, and you probably don't even realize that this happens to you a lot. But if you look at the things that you're spending money on, or the things that, like, the last thing you bought online or the last resource you bought to make yourself better, you were probably absorbing some free shit from that person before you gave them your money, right? They were giving you value for free. You're listening to the podcast, you're watching the TikTok videos, you're streaming on YouTube on their lives or whatever that looks like. And then before you know it, they're adding so much value to your life that you want to do more business with them, and you want to support them. And so it's the trade-off that's applicable in real life. When you add value to people and you make them better, the natural progression of that is that they're going to want to make you better too.
Well, and don't underestimate just being kind to strangers, right? Hold open a door.
Oh yeah.
Smile at somebody that smiles at you, and smile first. Oh my gosh, please smile first. It opens the door for a conversation that might not happen otherwise.
You got to go listen to that. Be happy. Choose joy.
Because that really does lead into this. And, we were talking about one of the places that we get wisdom is often at our craziest moments at dinner time when we're at a restaurant and our toddler has squirted ketchup.
Fucking old people knowledge.
Sorry.
We got iPads with toddlers and dogs, and it's just hella fun up in here tonight.
It's so crazy. But this
is real life.
This is exactly what would be happening in a restaurant.
Yes.
And so you're sitting there losing your mind because the toddler just squirted ketchup all over the table and the 5-year-old accidentally knocked her drink over, and you're about to cry, and some sweet little old person walks up and just is almost in